Welcome to the 1996 Computer Game Developers Conference from Santa Clara, California, where thousands of cutting-edge professionals from all over the world gathered in Silicon Valley to exchange information and insights on all aspects of the interactive entertainment industry. Welcome to the session, Strategic Business Models for Development on the Internet, with Christopher Dean.
A little before 10:30, but we can go ahead and fire this up and squeeze a little more than an hour in. They've shut the doors. It's a full house. First of all, you're all the victims of a baseband switch this morning. My name is not Christopher Dean. My name is Scott Brilo. I'm the Director of Development at Worlds Incorporated. We've been doing multi-user, over-the-internet virtual experiences, non-immersive, that run on pretty much available platforms, 486s and up, for a couple of years. The company was founded in April of '94. One of our first products, worldsChat, came out in April of '95, and we've had, I guess, pushing 250,000 downloads at this point, and a constant load of users in the space. So that's our claim to fame to some extent at this point. The roundtable, I think you all know the title, Strategic Business Models for the Internet. So the question is, how do we make money off of this? And this is all fun and games, as the conference says, but somewhere at the end of the day, people are obviously interested in making some money and seeing some return. So we're going to talk about what some of the possible business models are. You have a fully fleshed out one-page handout. We'll try to cover some of those. I guess the question is, there are sort of two breaks in half to me. You can either make money by selling to people who are going to do something with your tools, or you can make money by getting end users and people really interested in something that's going on to pay you for what you're doing. I think the viability of it sort of boils down to, are there end users who are going to pay for this? So I'm not actually going to focus on the sort of tool providing part of this. If you have tools to sell and someone sees a way to use your tools to make money selling to the end users, that's the important part, and then you have a market. So what I was going to talk about was a bunch of categories that would be ways to make money by selling things, and we can just sort of tick through the list and then start talking about which of those make sense, which of those have been demonstrated, or what you guys think is possible. I think it'll be also interesting to talk about models that we've seen work either on the internet or on the web, and how that sort of fits with games, because to the best of my knowledge, there historically, until very recently, there hasn't been a lot of overlap between games and the internet. So I think that it's fairly new, and we should talk about what you guys see as possible and what sort of perspective you bring to it. So real briefly, let's see, talking to the one-pager that I handed out, there's a subscription model where you get people to pay on an ongoing basis for access to something, and what that something is could be as dry as access to a database or as exciting as access to games. When I talk about a la carte purchases, it's just saying, yes, I could go to this site, find something that I'm interested in, and go get it. That could be information, that could be a utility or a tool. In some sense, it could be a product as well. Advertising, I think, is one of those things that's been proven out to some extent. I understand that a good chunk of Netscape revenues are from advertising. Certainly, a lot of the other web engines make some money from advertising. That's pretty clear. Channel distribution, making sure someone big wants to give your stuff to a lot of people. That doesn't really address the end user aspect, but people have used it to make good money that way. Retail distribution that goes along with subscription is a way of getting someone to pay for a CD with a lot of fun stuff on it that then gives them access to online information and hopefully more fun. And then there's transaction fees, and that's probably an enormous category. There's both large transaction fees for, I want this information delivered to me. There's microtransactions, which I think are really interesting, ways of getting people to pay a quarter for going and doing this, and then another 10 cents for going and doing this. And finally, today, there are ways to track and bill that really haven't existed until now. And I guess that was most of the list. So Where do you guys fit in this, and what do you want to do?
Be interested in skipping the early parts about microtransactions.
Ooh, okay, a fine topic. What else?
Well, these microtransactions typically happen through various distribution providers like Netcom, Netscape. But what about when the telcos start getting into this business and how they are fees on top of our revenue is providing content?
Well, certainly right now, I mean, you pay your ISP now, and you have an account, and nobody really objects to that, and they still make purchases on top of that. The question at the microtransaction level is going to be, is there an appropriate level of visibility into how I'm spending my money, right? Do I notice that I just got docked a nickel? Do I notice that I just paid a quarter?
I think you have to make that very clear to the user, because if you don't make it clear to the user, and they start doing things which cost a lot of money, they're going to feel burned. Sure. Especially game players who are there to be entertained, and they're not thinking of it in terms of database hits or anything like that. They're thinking in terms of entertainment.
But one of the important things, is clarity for how am I spending my money, and how do we represent that, or how do we acknowledge that fact?
A lot of game players are under 18, they probably don't have credit cards, and most of the microtransactions I'm aware of are based on that credit card model. So that leaves it open as to how do you do that. As a parent, I wouldn't probably just open a credit card to my child. Maybe I'd say here's $10 and that's the limit or something, but are there models that deal with that?
Sure, the cyber cash model works a little better for that, and I've even seen displays where they say, okay, you've got $3, okay, now you have $2.85 left. There's also debit cards.
Right, the television model, the pay-per-view model is buy now, pay later. How do with kids, how do you, I mean, mom and dad get the bill, a month later, and they see $600 of doom.
Well, with either hardware or software-based digital cash and debit cards, for example, you pretty much make that problem go away. I mean, there are still technical hurdles, but at least the model has been discussed in some detail. Sure.
Is there any microcharging actually going on? Anybody have an extant business that is funded that way? I mean, makes money.
I don't know of any offhand. I know there have been trials with the cash stuff, and like I said, I've seen demos of displays that say, okay, you just spent 13 cents here. I guess one of the other interesting things to note is when people have talked about making that work, they've talked about being able to set parameters so that you say, let me know when I've spent more than $5 total. Let me know if somebody's asking for more than 20 cents at a crack, and just sort of think of your Netscape preferences, right?
Well, actually, in the DigitCash trials, you have to proactively go and spend the money.
Yeah.
It's not going to just come out of your wallet by itself.
Right. But people have talked about that, the other model, which is, don't let me spend more than 20 cents at a crack or whatever.
I have an issue I'd like to ask the room about, which is the idea of charging a base monthly fee as opposed to just charging per hourly. My personal feeling is that most game players, since they may play for a couple months and lose interest in the games they currently have, and not play for several months, that's another way to make them feel burned, is by charging them a base monthly fee. It's great for your finances because you can count on that and plug that into your spreadsheets. I'm not sure it serves the game player ultimately very well, and I'm curious if there's some different opinions on that. Personally, I just let other players be charged the hours that they play, period.
Yeah.
On that, I'm interested in what people think about the daily fee and then a monthly fee would be for so many days, like so many days in a month, like 5 days, $2 a day or something, equates to $10 a month if you go over that or something. And that way we're not burning people by, the hours that they rack up. I mean, that's not how people who are providing the service pay for it. It's not a function of how many hours people play, it's a function of how many people are on at one time, right?
Well, in some sense that's true, but in some sense there's also internet bandwidth being used, and one of the sort of ongoing lurking questions about the whole internet is, are we going to have bandwidth, usage-based pricing schemes at some level? But I don't want to get away from this yet, so let me ask maybe a more general question, which is, what do you all know about usage patterns of people playing these games? Because I think that's going to really feed into your pricing model and determine what makes sense. If people really bang on a game for a month or two and then get bored with it, you're going to be hard pressed to get them to pay, you know, $2 an hour necessarily if flat fee works better, as long as it's easy to turn on and off the flat fee. So how do people use games now?
Are there any models that suggest valuations like per hour that have to deal with the time of day? Like say at 3 to 5 might be a real crummy time if that's when everybody's sitting on a certain level, you know, for a certain service.
Sure.
As all the internet and working down at 6.
Sure.
You know, your latency goes, you know, all those things might be low value hours. But from 8 to 12 might be really great hours to play games.
It should be clear that ISPs already do this, okay? There are ISPs that were charging based on time of day for a long time. And as soon as you have enough of a database to record, yeah, this is really a registered user, yeah, I want to let this person play my game, it's fairly easy to track that and use that information to build the time of day.
I think you've seen that all the online content services start out with very complicated pricing structure. We've all gotten back to now the unlimited, and the telcos are sort of driving that now. But I think the word unlimited has a very strong marketing play. And I mean, whether it's a game player or somebody who's, you know, just looking at content on AOL or something, it's just the fact that like you can't sit there and hear knowing that something's going to run out pretty soon. It's going to charge you another, you know, $10 for an hour or something like that. If you have unlimited, it's just like a sense of freedom.
Sure. But at some level, you are incurring costs on a connection basis and on a load basis. So if you're going to make an unlimited charge, you're going to have to fit that so that your costs are covered.
Yeah, I think between the monthly and the daily and the hourly, it sort of depends on the kind of game you're playing. Also, certain games like the MUDs, which are adventure games, they're fairly simple and low load. But they're also a lot about communicating and socializing and sitting around gabbing and stuff. People don't want to be charged by the hour for that kind of thing. They want to just have, maybe charged by the month or something, and then be wide open. Something like an action game, which is probably heavier load, and which you're probably just going to sit down and play for 3 hours before you get totally burnt on the thing. That's more of an hour of the
That's probably a useful split, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, it's really important that the user understands why he's being charged. And if it's a monthly model, it's obvious to the user why he's being charged, because he's still subscribing to the model. If I'm paying by the minute, I always, I played for 10 minutes in a game, and I look back at the clock and say, gee, I played for 2 hours, it only felt like 10 minutes. So I always feel, cheated at the end. It's like, oh, I didn't pay $700, what is this bill?
Well, again, does that fit with your usage models for what people do now?
I think that the player would probably prefer a monthly model, but you're going to make a lot more money charged by the hour if you have an addictive game, especially in FRC. There's no doubt about it. I know people who spend $1,000 a month playing those games. Back when it was $6.
Were they happy at the end of that month? Were they willing to spend?
They came back every month, month after month. And the fact is, you're going to make more money off them. They won't like it, but you're going to make more money.
Start over here and work back down.
Okay, well, I think there are 2 points here. The first is, don't forget, the internet is global. I mean, we're Americans, so we think in a 4-hour span, but, people in Japan are playing when we're not. So I don't know that, for these hours we're going to charge more. I don't know if that works. And the second thing is that you have to be kind of careful about an unlimited model. Too many people in the game can break it.
And there's actually a lot of interesting gameplay issues that maybe we should go back to.
Well, I think the fundamental disconnect between content and access, people can do flat fee access because they look at their overall usage, overall number of customers, how many are going to be online. And that may work in an access business. We're not in access business for the most part. People here, unless they're building a network, are in the content business. And if you want people to show up, you're selling a chunk of that content. And if you do it flat fee, which is what the consumer really wants. The consumer wants to limit their downside more than anything else. They want to know, well, I'm not going to run up a $600 credit card bill this month, even if I'm addicted, even if the crack works. But our usage, we're not in a broadcast medium. We're in an interactive medium, which means our cost are tied to usage. And so it's very difficult to come up with a flat fee model unless you have a large user base and understand exactly how they're going to use your product.
Well, that also talks to gameplay, and basically there's a real difference in the amount of resources that you have available. If you have a game that can support 10 users, or a game that can support 1,000 users, or an ongoing experience that can support 5,000 users.
Okay, I have two wild ideas that no one's thought of yet. Here they go. One, has anyone thought of an idea where when you log on, it tells you, oh, it's very crowded now, it's going to cost you more. If you log on later, it'll cost you less. And so it's demand-based. You know, the number of customers rushing to your system is more price. The second idea is, why not, what you're charging by time, but there might be some games you could say, well, you can play this game for very cheap, but if you want to start with a magic sword, you know, you have to pay $1 to get that piece of equipment. So, you know, I don't know if anyone's thought of, has tried to use selling game items, which are virtual objects and totally free to manufacture for price.
Well, it's still totally free for someone to manufacture. I just wrote down virtual realty, and that wasn't a typo. It's one of the models that one of the transaction or one of the purchase models is, okay, what am I buying here? If I'm buying an experience, or if I'm buying some abilities, or if I'm buying some virtual real estate, if there's value in that because of the rest of the experience you're providing, that could also be an interesting model.
Okay, the perspective I approach this from is usually of the game player, because love playing games from a very early age, and as I mentioned, most of you are. But as a game player, I feel like I don't want to be charged for my +1, sword or mace or whatever, in real terms. I want to have games which entice me to play longer, and maybe I'm paying by the hour. That's fine, but to start being dinged for objects that, look, I know exist only in the computer. It becomes. I mean, how do we feel about being charged to have an unlisted phone number? I don't think anybody likes that. I mean, they just forbid the phone company. Yes, they had to put some infrastructure in to flip that bit, but that's not what I feel I'm paying them for. And I think that's why I personally wouldn't design a game where you're paying for your inventory or for your real estate.
Well, if you earn some of that, you effectively pay for it as well, but you have to play it.
Exactly. And also, there's nothing that prevents the players themselves from doing out-of-band transactions where they're, trading stuff for money. That's fine with me.
So that's another interesting thing, is there gameplay that would involve an economy that would let people...
I'm on both sides of this issue, but I'm going to speak here strictly as a parent with several kids, and anything other than unlimited service is just totally unacceptable, because you don't know which kid put the hours in, and it's just not worth your personal effort to go track it. There is a limit, there's only one computer and one modem, but as to which of them spent it, it's just absolutely, psychologically unfeasible to think anything other than unlimited service.
Yeah, I would have to agree with the gentleman who talked about limiting the downside, especially for parents and young children, because you don't know how much time they're going to be on. And if you give a parent, a parent is much more apt to say, okay, for this service for my child, it's going to cost me this much per month. Hey, if it has some added value that the parent knows, that the child is getting, except for entertainment, I think that you have a very viable.
We're debating what particular option we think that we would pick, but eventually this is going to be decided by the telcos and the providers anyway. And if they play a traditional type of role, some people will be given the opportunity to play by the hour, and some people will be given the opportunity to have unlimited access to certain key areas. In the end, what it comes down to, and I think the point here is, what are we providing in the way of inducement, enticement, to actually bring people into that environment. And in the end, that's something that I think we can affect. Whether or not how we're going to be billed out by these people that run a cable to our door, we won't be able to determine that here.
Well, that's an interesting distinction. It seems like you're sort of blurring network access and fees that you would receive. And currently, again, while I pay my ISP something, if I find a website that carries something I want and I buy it, I'm still willing to make that purchase. And the ISP, even if it's 18 months, doesn't really have anything to say about that pricing currently.
Right, but I mean, that's because of the nature of the competition that exists out there. I mean, if somebody's offering $19.95 unlimited access and it's relatively decent in terms of providing that, then everybody else is going to try to chase that model. But you might run into somebody like Robert who says, well, no, I want to play by the hour. I think in the end, as I said before, I think what we have to be concerned with is what we're providing in terms of that content to address the issues of a parent that might be online and to address the Duke Nukem fans out there that want to be involved in this sort of environment. What are we providing in the way of environments that make this a good place to spend your money?
Okay. One thing if a parent can do is you allow them to set up a system where, I mean, the child does not have a credit card. If the parent's giving in the credit card information, they should be able to allow to set up an allowance saying, well, they only get 10 hours a week or whatever it is. And,
Per kid, too.
yeah, set up for the children, so what they can use.
And that's basically the debit card strategy. But there's one thing, everything that's been talked about so far is tentatively based on a subscription basis. You'd go to somebody's site, you'd sign up with a credit card, and then you would be billed against that credit card. And I think that's a gating scenario that would preferably be avoided, especially in the case of microcharges, if you can get the ISP or the telco, who may be one and the same in the next couple of years, to actually take those charges and put them on your end-of-month bill, albeit against a debit card. You should have the debit card strategy. But at that point, you can just browse the web and it would announce that, yes, you're getting dinged a nickel or a half a cent for this, but you don't have the gating of requiring somebody to pull out their credit card and enter their credit card number to get to your site each time, or the first time to become a subscriber. If you don't have to force somebody to become a subscriber, but you can still make the money, they're going to be a lot faster to go spend a quarter on your site than to pull out that credit card to spend a quarter on your site.
Right. That's an important point, is pushing down that barrier for people to spend money. The easier it is for them to spend money, the likelier they are to do it.
I'm not so sure we have to pick one single way of charging. We have a menu, and so some people who want to pay for play set a price maybe a little premium because of the flexibility you're buying there, but the heavy gamer pays a flat fee for unlimited use, but it's set accordingly. So
It's like a cellular phone number.
Yeah.
The more hours you want to buy per month for free, the lower your monthly.
Yeah, it's all known ahead of time, and then you can move through, like, you start to try the service, you really like it, so then you buy in heavier.
Let's look at the other side too, is the content providers. I mean, right now, if you want to distribute something on the internet, you have to pay some kind of fee, whether building a server or, licensing some time on someone else's server. But when the telcos get involved, what are they going to charge publishers or creators of content to put their content on their system? Right now you have to pay all this money to Sony and Sega for their licensing fee, and I'd like to get the distribution mafia out of the system, if possible.
That's an interesting point.
I don't think the telcos are going to make anything to say about it. Their model has always been, they're making money by how much time you spend talking. They don't care what you're saying or who you're talking to, whether it's IBM or Jane down the street. All they care about is how many phone lines you have and how much time are you spending using them. I don't think that's going to change. They may be agents, like the gentleman was saying. They might get a small fee for how long you spend. Maybe even if they're collecting your content fees for you, they'll take a cut. But that's still not content provider. We are content providers, and ultimately that's the top end of the food chain. That's just going through the telcos may just be a cost of doing business if you're having them collect fees.
It's also in their best interest to have good content.
So content has always been the scarcest resource. You guys have the scarcest resource.
I think we have to also consider the business model everyone's used to. You go to the store, you buy a game. You rent a game at Blockbuster. You buy a book. You buy a newspaper. You watch TV, and except for cable, it's free. So to introduce a new business model is going to be a little bit tough, because look at the video on demand trials and the fact that people really don't want to pay, $1 every time they watch an old rerun of Gilligan's Island.
But they can't get multiplayer Doom at Blockbuster.
Well,
They can get videos that that they've seen before, but
Right.
they can't get.
I just think though that that's the mentality that people are going in with.
Well, maybe you should see a quarter, and like you should have click on the quarter, goes to the machine, or game guy, and then you play. So they used to.
Yeah, arcade.
Yeah, we might want to consider that this is a different kind of a content that we're providing here too. It's not really just providing a game that someone's going to play. It's providing a place for people that come together. But really, the content of an online game is half of it. The other people playing, where so this might be more of a business model like a nightclub or something like that, where the appeal is the other people that are coming and they attract all the other people who are coming.
You pay a cover charge.
Yeah.
We practically in error to restrain ourselves though to pricing by cost, which we tend to gyrate to. Probably, willingness to pay is still one of the best ways to judge how much we should charge. So it's not just cost or time. We may want to forget that model and do on something else. Maybe it's a level of play. Once you get to the more advanced people, pay more than the novices who can come in at a lower price to kind of get used to it.
Although when you have that disconnect, you still have to understand your costs so that you make sure that you're...
It's got to be about the cost, yeah.
All right, sorry.
I think that we're going to think, what's going to happen is we're going to think of all kinds of complicated ways of pricing, of hourly pricing and by level and by different things, but it's ultimately going to come down to simplicity, because that's what's going to filter through simplicity, and people end up with a really simplistic model, and that's what people will gravitate to, because there won't be all these weird barriers, like how much am I paying for this, and I have to think about that, and I have to think twice about hooking people up, and I have to think twice about going to the bathroom in the middle of my game, because I don't want to, pay extra for that, and I think it'll attract a lot more people to gaming, not necessarily just your hardcore guys who say, I'll spend $200 a month or $600 a month, but I think you'll get a lot of new people, and I think that volume will compensate for all the complicated things.
Taking that a step further, why don't we flip this model and talk about advertising and promotions? Magazines are an advertising-based business. So is television. Those are mass media. This is not a mass media yet. So what kind of war stories can we share with each other about advertising? What are our projections?
Well, are you willing to now incorporate advertising in your games that you just distribute that aren't over the internet, or how do you address that now?
Well, just to talk about advertising briefly, the problem is that we don't have a sufficient audience to attract the kind of advertisers who are just looking for impressions, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about impression-based advertising. Coke, Pepsi, GM, whatever. Big companies that just want, their brand branded in your brain. If you look on the internet now, there's less than 10 companies actually making money in advertising, covering their cost. So advertising is the great white hope of the internet, and unfortunately it probably won't pay out, particularly for games where we cannot currently attract 50 to 100,000 extremely targeted demographic customers. Okay, when we can deliver 1 million people consistently, then advertising plays a part, but currently our cost models are nowhere near in the right realm for that.
And the cost, the cost per thousand on the online advertisers like, Yahoo, are far above the cost of any kind of broadcast or print media, like, certainly by a factor of 10. It's a more targeted audience, I suppose that's true, but it's not efficient. It's so inefficient that it's probably not going to live that way. Though, as far as advertising goes, I think that the advertisers can directly attack some consumers without going through anyone in between, like a content provider. The real example I can think of is Coke. I don't know if anyone's gone on the Coke website, but you can download the Coke screensaver and the Coke WAV file and the thing that turns your mouse into a Coke bottle, and it's they're really living on the, and they give that away for free. It's sort of like the the Star Trek screensaver of Coke given away, and so they really don't need anyone in the middle for that part of the advertising.
Okay, now,
we've got to go to that site.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because so far we've talked about subscriptions where everybody pretty much sees on this and said, how do people pay for this? We've talked about advertising where it's like, well, maybe if they're seeing this other stuff too. But you haven't yet crossed the barrier for where did all these people come from? And how do you distribute this now, and how are you going to distribute this so people can get at it? And that should actually go back to how do you broaden your base so that you don't have only 50 or 100,000 hardcore gamers, but you have millions of people interested in these experiences. Yeah.
I guess this is somewhat peripheral, but one biggest forms of advertising for games that I've seen on the web is the giveaways. You get the first level for free and the other 2 levels for dollars. And what's perplexing me is it would be really interesting to know what are the hit rates of the number of shareware games that are downloaded. Does anybody have a sense for how many are actually bought and follow-ons?
Right. How many, what gets translated into actual revenue after you start giving away simple levels?
Well, the game has to be addictive, certifiably, or it's not gonna, nobody's gonna bother registering it.
Okay, now that's an interesting question because what does addictive mean? I mean, we've been running these multi-user spaces for over a year at this point, and we have people who will spend hours a day chatting, and that's currently the limit. Well, in worldsChat, that's the limit of the experience, basically. In another product we have called Alpha World, people can build things. You let people, manipulate objects in the virtual environment, and they put a house somewhere, and their house is there, and everyone else who walks by their house sees it. If they see their mailbox, they see their trash put out. People find that addictive too, and part of it's because they're involved in their building. And one of the interesting questions.
Things.
Some of your companies must have websites already, so maybe it's worth discussing. How well you think those work.
It's something on the addictive thing, so I'll skip it. So here's that next question.
The bandwidth is key. Like, the bandwidth right now is so shitty. How do we, what's the right number on where that's really going? Because that will help us find the content of the products. I mean, 2-year development projects. In 2 years, what's the bandwidth going to be really just installed base? Because
there's 2 parts to that, and the first part I think is how much bandwidth do you need, and that sort of ties into what kind of experience you want to provide. Our chat stuff and even our Alpha World where people build works fine over 9600 baud modem, and it's interactive in that sense. It is clearly not a Twitch game for latency reasons. We'll obviously run into that. The other part is what do we believe is going to happen in 2 years? And I've heard people say 2 years ago, well, by 1996 everybody will have ISDN, and this bandwidth thing won't be a problem. And we're obviously not there yet.
Scott, if you're a content provider, you go to a channel partner like an AOL, what is the financial model? What are they going to hit you with? Do you have any insight on that?
I don't think I have any much insight on that. I understood that you can pay like a couple $100,000 a quarter for being included in their information space, but that was before they went to a more web-based model, and I don't really know anything beyond that. My old company is actually a web development and technology company. We got included in AOL's initial pass at interesting sites, and we saw a lot of hits from that, but because AOL was just trying to roll the tongue and find things, there was some money.
Because it's clear to me now that AOL is looking for content. They're looking for exciting content that can attract and keep their subscribers happy. And there is a mission in AOL to go out and pretty much attach themselves to people who have been creating traditional content, television, film, what have you, to bring that kind of entertainment experience that they can sell to their subscribers. And basically when you're talking to them, nobody really knows what the model is.
But I see them as sort of the seventh, I think it's right, the 7th network after UPN and Warner is AOL. And so they need to buy shows and buy episodes, even though it's a different experience. I mean, they need that kind of steady supply of new things.
So you're talking about these corporate sites primarily that what kind of model are you or Jim looking up to different That's very interesting. It's the first piece of licensed property out there that's being set up all over this direction.
Yeah, and unfortunately that's so current that I don't actually have a good answer. I mean, we're still in discussions with MGM about that. We focused a lot on gameplay, and while I think it's in some sense a little peripheral to the topic here, personally I find it really interesting because the question is, how do you make an ongoing experience interesting for 1,000 people? I mean, if somebody's going to give away 100,000 discs, and you're going to find on an ongoing basis that like 1% of these people are going to be involved in this game, then there's like 1,000 people there 24 hours a day doing stuff that even you guys probably can't even imagine. And how do you make that work on an ongoing basis and not crash and not give people enough power to just sort of ruin the experience, but give them enough power to make it interesting to them? So we've been focusing on how to do that with MGM.
So you concern themselves primarily now about building things like that to keep their hands full of gameplay.
Yeah. Basically being on the development side at this point, I don't know what the most recent discussions have been in terms of what that model's gonna be. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, does anybody have a website set up where you actually sell things like levels or sell, something on it that's actually taking in credit card numbers and doing that? How does that work?
There's software packages that you can buy that'll allow you to like add a store into an existing mall, and it handles everything for you.
Credit card. Has anybody used like the Netscape deal to process credit cards? Or have any experience with that? If it works or not?
Does it know what heck? I mean, I bought things, no, I don't.
I bought, I
I've
left
used
my,
it. I was one of the few pioneers. No, it's, when they, drag the credit card across the strip in a restaurant, it's on the phone lines anyway.
sure, I mean, they walk into the back room and who's got it at that point? I mean, that's an obvious question.
I don't have personal experience, but as I understand it, whatever was recent reading was the things that are selling most popular on the web right now, books. Online bookstores and record stores.
Records,
Flowers. Seem to be right now, well, particularly books, because you have a brainy audience, and you really have to use the web as a marketing tool towards the audience that's using the web, which is not just expected.
I was just having a discussion with someone earlier about the actual reality of processing credit card transactions. I'm wondering if on the web whether that's still centralized with Visa or whether you as a web retailer you take in credit card transactions and then do like a mass transaction with Visa.
What does centralized mean? I mean, the existing model, if you are a merchant,
Well,
if you have a
always
business.
centralized? It didn't used to be centralized. It used to be a shop that take a load of things and then you do a deal with Visa at the end of the month to settle up your account. So that would make microtransactions much more of a reality.
At the existing model, I don't know how familiar you guys are with sort of retail operations, but you have what is called a merchant account, and it allows you to take credit cards, process credit card transactions, batch them up, deliver them to an ACH, an automated clearinghouse, and is affiliated with Visa, one of the big banks, et cetera, and you get settled that way. And certainly anyone who goes into business, whether they're taking cards over the net or not, can apply for and get these merchant accounts. So typically, when my company put up sites for retail establishments, we just, depending on the retail establishment's merchant account. I also know other people at other web companies that basically went and got merchant accounts themselves and then said, okay, now we can just deal with all these little businesses that maybe never even took credit cards before, and we can do that. So.
Yeah, what's most scary for people is, that you store your number with the company you're dealing with in case, and then you have a password to access it. And that may be
Can you credit card as well as debit it? I mean,
Any merchant can.
So in the sake of a gambling online operation, I could give money back to
Well,
someone.
I'm not sure about that. As far as, I don't know about Visa, but you may only be able to credit things for things that contribute debits. I don't think they'll allow you just to add money to people's accounts. Because they're not used to writing checks to their users.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I was curious, these merchant codes, or these merchant deals, like if someone says, well, I didn't really spend $100, you have a credit card guarantee, who takes the hit? Is it you as a merchant, or does Visa hold up the $100?
The credit card company takes the hit, and they don't even care because they make so much money. That's what happens.
That could be a big
If a stolen credit card gets used all over the place, and someone charges up $2,000,
Definitely credit card.
The credit card company takes the hit.
Part of their fraud department.
If there's fraud involved, they do
investigation.
I think there's a key issue here that I haven't heard addressed, and I certainly like to hear people talk about it, and I don't know the answers. And that is that, I discovered that if I buy something defective at the store, they just take it back, no questions asked. I mean, I come from the Northwest and we have Nordstrom's, and their policy is if you come in with an automobile package that you didn't like it, they'll take it back, even if they got some ornament this time. And if you call up the phone company and say you've got a $50 charge to England and you don't think that was right because it was too noisy or something, they'll just take it right off, because the loss of reputation that they have, I mean, I still will not use America Online because it's killing arguments. The loss of reputation and the time that it takes them to settle it, it's just much easier for them to say, oh, okay, we'll settle it this time and just rely on the general honesty of people to not go and exploit that. And if you're going to charge people 25 cents, I mean, there's no way there's no possible way they can argue for 25 cents if you start being that way about it. And how do you deal with this consumer environment with all this microcash? I don't understand.
Yeah,
don't have the person in front of you with the signature. They have a year to dispute. You warranty your product. And if they say we didn't receive or anything else, and it's in a foreign country, you're out of the market for that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, addressing the microcash issue, I've got to be in support of what you were talking about, the simplicity of billing. I came from the telecom industry, and the ability to bill with long-distance billing or cellular billing, where it's a per-minute charge, or where you're talking about micro-charges, the billing systems are massive. Millions and millions of dollars are designed on these systems, so that when you do call and dispute something, they can bring up a particular charge for a particular minute or a particular call and take that off, or if you order something through the phone company, making those kind of changes is unbelievable in terms of cost. So from a management perspective, the simpler you can do it, the less cost it's going to be.
Right, I do. I think that was an issue about the monthly versus the micro cash. And something that we haven't taken into account is the small companies that somebody does have to manage that if in case you decide to have that type of billing structure, and then you also have to have the infrastructure for people to call up and have the ability to dispute charges, and that can become extremely costly.
Can't even begin to illustrate how expensive it is.
Actually, he had his hand first. I'll go next. Go ahead. Oh, all right. I guess it's me. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, I hope this isn't too far of a changing subject, but the woman over there brought up something interesting. Okay, say you're going to go to a flat fee. What are you going to do? Do you do level? Do you do just a day? Okay, $5 a day, less than a movie. Is it 3 days? And at what point is that cost effective, but not too much on the consumer? I have to say, just outrightly being one of those really icky marketing people, I think will not go for the 7 cents for that bit of email and 25 cents. I think people do hate that.
I would think that if you have the management resources and tools in place, you're going to probably do best if you make your time period as small as possible. Like the phone company, I think, has it wired. You know, it's like you want to talk for another minute, you're not worried about it. It's just another 6 cents. You know, but if you're going to make it $6 an hour, then you're not going to want to click over to that next hour.
Yeah.
I'd just like to throw out the idea of doing it the old-fashioned way, as far as charging, where, in my case, I'd like to be doing action game, cool environment, and with lots of interesting objects in there. So you're going to have a lot of stuff on the user end of like models and environments, textures, and just sell this thing on a CD. Just actually sell the product like software pencil in retail stores, or maybe over the flyers. But once you get the CD, the access is free, and the person who's selling the CD is setting up servers or whatever in order to keep this thing marketable. I'm just looking at something like Quake, which is going to be coming out, which is a product they sell, which has the server and the client built right into the thing, and they're just going to let everybody set up their own servers, and probably nobody's going to be charging for this stuff anyway, so it's going to be a pretty competitive product.
I think that you ought to look at what your servers are likely to cost you, because even if they're 10 kilobits a second, you're talking about like 150 people going up to T1.
Anyway, it's that's the model behind 10 Impact. People are gonna sell games to the regular market, and they're gonna use their services because the latency is lower still, and that's what their model.
But are they paying for their network costs off the sales of the games, or are they
No,
still
the
charging?
10 and Impact are charging a fee, a subscription fee, and the
Right.
games are being made by people who are no relation to 10 or Impact.
Right, and that's a split between access and content again, which is I think a very sensible one.
I want to comment about that too, because we're talking a lot about how the phone companies are charging by the minute for access. I would not be surprised if that model changes in the next 10 or 15 years. I think that's liberal. That I think it could be that even voice communication before long, practically anywhere in the country or the world, you may get charged a flat monthly fee for as much time as you want to spend talking, and then you'll pay extra for specific services, by the hour or whatever. I think that may be the way we're moving even the phone companies, as immovable as they may seem.
So before I do some more hands, let me mention this really quickly because I found this very interesting. There's a bunch of these internet phone products nowadays, two-way voice communications.
Exactly,
over the
that's
net.
been driving too.
The telecommunications, one of the telecom industry organizations has filed like a brief with the FCC saying this is not in the public interest.
50 telecom companies.
Yes,
Yeah.
whatever the industry organization is, yeah.
Just a quick comment on over there having a long paying for the game as opposed to the time playing. I think with online games, it's really different from retail-based games. For instance, you might have continuous updates with online games. You know, they might be updated, you know, daily or weekly or monthly, new patches all the time, new improvements all the time. I think that people who develop online games really like that. They like that they can do that, and they don't have to worry about a big new red that sometimes happens. But I think customers like that too. So that would be
What if the
something.
package product just gets you in and it's, you know, encoded CD?
It's just access?
That just gets access, and that's how you determine your additional time or whatever else, and then you have access to all the other things.
Right. Well,
you
can already get the idea, right?
Although one of the things to note is you don't want to download patches that somehow, you know, change the user experience or invalidate things that people have done already. That's a tough thing. These people can't be on shifting sands. They need to believe that they're going to go into this place and get an experience.
I work with one of the DVD-ROM teams, and we've talked to a number of content developers who are looking at selling a DVD-ROM and then letting people interact as a way to deal with some of the bandwidth problems, but also have something they can more easily charge for.
You know, if we come up with a standard, like a data structure for handling gaming parameters like character, background, puzzles, and so forth, like there's a MIDI and ASCII and so forth, other protocols, then any game player could go into any other game and explore that environment as whatever character they want. That would be interesting. Long-term developmental risk.
That's a large order, a tall order.
Yeah, Leaders of Liberty and the King's Quest World.
What I'm hearing around it, what you're doing here is that there's lots of different models, and that does break the simplicity. You might have a simple model over here, and a simple model over there, and a simple model over here. Comes from Starway, we got a pretty simple model, and you know, but still, that's a multiple simplistic environment for the similar. So how is that all going to standardize into the real stupid? I'm paying $43 to my Viacom cable because that's really easy. You know, and I've got unlimited access to all these products, but I can do it through the TV.
That's a good point, is right now, you talked about sort of interoperability from a technology point of view, but there's also interoperability from a sort of billing point of view. And would that be even interesting to people, or do they think, well, if someone has a game that's a little better than mine, they're just going to bail on my game and they're going to go somewhere else? And then what do you think? Because of the easy model. Yeah.
Well, when you think about, I mean, when you buy cable, for example, I mean, you buy a channel on cable, if you buy HBO or you buy Showtime or whatever, when you buy that, you're not buying one game. What you're buying is a whole stream of crap coming by all the time. You know, it's a whole bunch of content that you buy. You buy access to a bunch of content. So single games being done as channels is probably not a happening thing. You know, it might happen as an aberration in the front end, but it's definitely not going to happen. I mean, you can do it as a flat fee as an individual provider, but if you really want to get a mass market, you've got to do a channel, per se, and aggregate your content.
Two comments on this. One is that just like Doom set the standard for all these, the way to distribute games over the internet, give away one level and charge for the other two. I think we'll see a lot of this, whoever gets the big move going, whether they're making money on it yet or not, if they look like they've got momentum, then a lot of people are going to follow along in that track, and that's going to help do it. But also, I think there is definitely a need to pull it all together, and the more that it can be the same model the user understands. That's the beautiful thing about Doom. Anybody that, you know, a Descent or a Duke Nukem or whatever, you understand that you're going to get the first 9 levels, and the rest is going to be for pay. And the user understands that. It's real easy to follow the steps down.
Well, right now, I think, you know, you guys are principally distributing, you know, you place ads, you get people interested in your stuff, etc. One of the things that I'm hearing is, okay, if there's access providers that are gateways, or even if there's networks, per se, that are gateways, do you think that you'll all be sort of working under someone else's umbrella, or do you think that you'll still be independently making your efforts to distribute your stuff?
I think
a lot of people take the attitude that like, if you build it, they will come. But
Not the marketing people, though.
There's just so much information. I mean, I don't know how many websites come up every day, and the thing that if you just put something up and everyone's going to flock to it, I mean, I think you're fooling yourself because there's just so much, there's more information that even if you're interested in it, that you can't consume all this information. So it really has to find some places where, I mean, there's some people who aggregate subscribers. There's all these people who I know and I got their credit cards and they feel comfortable with giving their credit cards to me or however they're paying me. And there's other people, or maybe the same people who are aggregating content. It's a matter of getting those things together. So, yeah.
That's another question. Everyone's talking about developing games, but does that mean you're developing games for the current demographics of the internet? Or are you going to try to attract users that you want to have play your games? Today, isn't it 66% are male, age 18 to 34?
Well, yeah, but that also follows the demographic of people who own computers. I mean, you know, it's sort of the horse leading the cart. If you don't have a horse, your cart's not getting anywhere.
Right, but the point is there are a lot of people who today are in the gaming industry are looking at ways to attract women, attract adults, attract kids, female kids. So are we going to just wait till that evolves on online, or are we going to wait? Are we going to try to produce products that get people to get online?
Right, well, it's the same as asking about bandwidth. You're asking about the evolving demographics of the internet because I think it was probably worse than 66% then 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So if you're developing games that are 18 months away from marketing, what's that going to look like after the AT&T really opens up? AT&T's an ISP and AOL has more subscribers, et cetera.
Just to address the question of what you just mentioned there about making games that might appeal to women. Looking at that as far as single-player games, it seems like a lot of the research I've seen says that women want to play games that are cooperative or involved in more civilization. Just a simple act of having an online game can add that to the game. The fact of having people that can add a lot of the elements there. Once it gets up and running, I think it can start drawing more.
Assuming your game is actually bringing people together. I mean, I think there's some people who are creating online games which are actually separating people more than you want. Right, and also, I mean, once again, I don't think too many women are going to be, and I know it's a generalization, are going to be interested in Doom and things like that. But online games, you can design games which don't have good one-player modes in them, and you can save the money you'd otherwise spend by doing one-player mode, doing a great multiplayer game. And if you design from the ground up, you have cooperative as well as competitive aspects that you realize that's the only way to win. If you both cooperate, at least with your team members, as well as compete, I think you're going to appeal to a large number of people, and you're not going to alienate the men. You know, it's not just going to be a girl game. I don't like that term. I like people games.
I think with the single-player games, it just hasn't really been possible to get that kind of content in there because
you're playing
trying to get
robots.
an AI to cooperate
Exactly.
with you.
So what sort of depth of experience do you think you need to let players on a team cooperate? What capabilities do you think that the game has to have?
First of all, I think very appropriate to the internet. I don't think it has to be extremely fast action. If it's extremely fast action, you have no time to communicate. You have to be able to stop the thing, to type a few lines of chat back and forth or whatever, or even to pull back into a corner of the game where you're not necessarily in the thick of it, and just talk for a while, and then go in and do some more maybe real-time oriented things. And once again, I think the internet's a great platform for that. You don't have to go push a game. In fact, you're discouraged from it by the latency.
Yeah. If we can move back a bit more towards financial stuff other than game design, but one issue there that you're bringing up was the idea of teams. And if you're using games for teams, is there a charging model that can say you charge groups of people rather than individuals? Is that a way of kind of bulking up the amount of that transaction in a way that the transaction costs become more manageable?
I'm kind of wary of some of these models that seem to suggest putting the charging models into the game design, where you start charging more for a more experienced player or something like this. It seems like if I'm seeing a ticker on the screen while I'm playing the game, that's not
Well, I think creative financing is as important as creative game design.
But, I mean, I think I put the financing in as like, if you're a really great player, you get a discount. Just, you play more and
I think models like that should be considered when the market's a bit more mature. At first, I'd just charge people as individuals, and then later on, when you have some demographics that go on, and you've done some market focus groups or whatever, then you start experimenting with things like that.
Even with team discounts, I know that if you belong to a sports team, you pay, if you want to go out play ice hockey, for example, I believe the individuals pay, but the organizers and all, the team pays, but everyone contributes to the team. It's hard for, at our level of organization, that people have to engage in, which may be hard. Maybe you just give a team sign-up discount.
Well, I mean, a lot of online games are kind of DM oriented, so maybe the DM should be in charge of winning strength fees or recruiting teams.
One of the things to ask yourself is how scalable is a DM model?
I think I may hide it. I think it's all on, also really.
So the what?
Multi-user game can scale network. It's out now. It's in beta right now.
You talk about Cyberpark, or?
I believe so.
Can you talk imagination?
No, the realm is Sierra.
The
realm is by Sierra.
The realm by Sierra.
Right, that's still in beta right now.
Yeah, I mean, is that going to be like a subscription type thing?
They don't know.
My experience with beta is that they're not betaing the financial model, they're just betaing the product.
I just think that people aren't talking enough about selling stuff to the customers in the way the customer wants to buy it, and I think you can't. If you try to adjust what you want to, or make the customer do what you want, you're going to have trouble. And you have to sell things to customers the way they want to buy it. And I think even the telephone companies do that, because you can get untimed service, or you can pay message units. Even they offer a few choices though, simple. Maybe 3. And because that's the key, and especially as the product moves from early adopters to the mass market, the early adopter will change their life to get what they want probably, but the mass market won't. And that, I think that speaks to what Gordon said about you're buying, when you're really getting an online service, one game is not enough. You sort of have to have a basket of choices. And by the way, I think that expands outside of games. I think you have to offer email, chat, browsing, all those things that the umbrella organization provides, because people want to buy. I think people are only going to have one place that they spend money for things that come over the wire. I don't think people have more. I don't think a lot of people have HBO and Cinemax unless they get them both as one package. I don't think a lot of people really in the cable world buy 2 packages.
Well, now you're basically arguing that there ought to be a delivery platform, and that's fine, but I don't know how relevant that is to you saying, the whole room here saying we need to provide content to that platform. The whole Netscape thing is obviously a platform effort where it's not just a browser. You can read news, you can read email, you can do all these other things. And that's fine, but that's not saying that there isn't value added by people designing interesting websites.
Oh, no. There's definitely stuff that's going to have to go, and there's going to be financial models for those people to get money for that. But going it alone or billing and billing, that's not. It's really your ISP that's going to be. Your negotiation is going to be with your ISP, not with the end user.
Okay. Yeah, in a couple minutes we have left. I was wondering, for all the people that have been thinking about this for a long time, we're obviously primordial news phase of this thing, and nobody's got it all figured out. How about predictions for the next 6 to 12 months? What kind of models do you think? Yeah, I think that's it. What kind of models do you think are going to work?
Go ahead.
Well, there's currently only 3 extant models, period. For all the talk about microcharging and all that crap, it doesn't work right now. It's not extant. There's the free model. You put your shit on the web, you give it away for free, you let people play games for free across the internet or modem to modem. Okay, so there's the free thing. A lot of people doing the free thing. There is then the flat fee thing. If you go out on the web, you'll find sites that have a flat fee monthly charge, $4.95, $4.99. If anybody's making money on it, it's got to be the smut people, because I don't know anybody who's delivering an actual real product who has enough subscribers to cover the cost. If anybody knows anything different, I'd love to hear about it, because I'd like to hear that flat fee might work at some point. Because that's what the consumer, I believe the consumer wants flat fee. The only other model that works right now is that somehow or another your content is bundled with access, and the access provider pays you a royalty for your content. And that's the AOLs, the CompuServes, the Prodigies, and that's all down the line. Kind of, sort of, yeah.
Internally, we made a distinction, and I don't know if you guys have used this language before, but just for clarity, we've always referred to online services as AOL, et cetera, people with their own POPs and their own access.
Right, a dial-up place to
online
dial.
destination
as the other situation you're talking about, which is where, I've got a website, it's really cool, I try to get people to pay money.
You can get
for
there
it.
from anywhere.
Right.
Okay, but if you're going through an access provider, that's where you're doing a royalty model.
Terminology thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, basically this whole topic is how do I keep my business solvent? How do I make money at it? And I think the businesses that are going to survive are the ones who utilize as many of these as are appropriate. You don't just have to go with advertising, but it's dumb to ignore it. Television viewership is down 33% due directly to the internet. So ignoring that is foolish, especially because advertisers see games as like the play. They'll throw money at you if you have a website. They will do it. Maybe you have your own website. Maybe you also go through AOL, or you do all of these things to get in money so you can stay in business.
Well, there's all the power-ups and